Hey, Sooner fans, welcome back. It's spring. It's that time of year. Softball's upon us, so we've got our first. It'll be our annual, but we got our first spring softball preview with our special guest Chris Plank. What better guest to have to talk about Sooner softball but Chris Plank? So up next here on Champion Standard. Yeah, welcome in everyone. Got a special podcast today. We're going to be looking at the Sooner softball team, and no sense in waiting. Let's bring on our special guest, Chris Plank.
What's going on, guys? How's it going?
Good. Yep,
There we go.
Gotcha. Yep,
He's in.
I'm in. I'm ready to roll.
I guess I didn't introduce you properly. I should say play-by-play announcer for Sooner softball, sideline reporter for football.
Yeah.
KREF, you're on from 9 to noon, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I will say, and Rob and I were talking about this the other day before I forget, you have to be the envy of almost every play-by-play announcer in the country these past few years.
I get reminded quite a bit by people how I'm pretty lucky. And I used to, whenever I first started, I'm like, lucky? I'm like, I freaking started running the board for Driller games in 1997 and was a board op for 4 years before I ever even got on the air. Lucky, but then I'm like, yeah, you're probably pretty right. I mean, it's just this whole idea that I started. My family and I lived in Tulsa for the longest time, and we moved down here in 2015, the summer of 2015. Everything in my mind is of softball and then of the OU quarterbacks. So we moved down for Baker. So we had Baker for 2 years, Kyler, Jalen, we went through all that. And I moved down here with the sole intent of doing softball full time and bringing, another full-time member on the Sooner Sports TV. So I used to be like, lucky, come on, man, you got to create your own luck. But with what has ended up happening since we came down here in 2016 and the run they've been on, I'm the luckiest dude in the world right now. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's something else. So you have been 2016 is when you started?
I started at OU in 2011.
Oh, okay.
Brad, where do you live? Are you in Norman?
I'm over in Yukon.
Oh, you're in Yukon. Where you at, Rob?
I'm in Norman. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm in Goldsby now.
Okay.
But yeah. So listen, I'm going to try to figure out directions. I'm south of you. I know that much, Rob. So we lived in Tulsa. I graduated from TU in 97, and I lived in Tulsa, and I did a radio there and did the afternoon show. And in 2011, I got the opportunity to do sidelines when Toby got the play-by-play job. So I did sidelines, and then I was commuting in 11, 12, 13, 14, and then for the 15 football season, they were like, why don't you just move on down here? So we moved our family down here. So 15 football, 16 was when we started the KREF show, and that was my first year with softball. And yeah, not bad. The season has never ended without a trip to the World Series, and we've gone to the championship series now 5 straight years. It's unbelievable.
That is crazy. Yeah. And COVID cut short the 2020 year, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of wild because, we were talking about airport trips. We travel a lot, and I'm a pretty nervous, paranoid flyer. And I'll never forget that we started the year in 2020, we went to Mexico, and we were going through security, and I was kind of on my phone and I wasn't paying attention. And the lady goes, "Sir, have you been to China recently?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't been to China." And I was like, and so it was like the first kind of concerns over COVID. And then that eventually shut down the season. Now, it's kind of wild when you look back at it, because 2020 wasn't trending all that well. And, that roster was completely reshaping, completely different in 2021. Mm-hmm. So, it hurt to lose that season, but that might have been one of those more challenging years for the Sooners. And then they rebuilt the roster and have been on a rocket ship ever since.
Yeah, they really have. Speaking of COVID, I got to say, Rob and I worked together, and Rob was totally on top of COVID, man. He was following it. There was a whole bunch of us that weren't believers. We're like,
Right.
no, it'll never make it over here, Rob. I don't know what you're talking about, man. And sure enough,
Yeah,
we were like,
I was
man,
like
Rob, you told us.
4 or 5 months ahead of time. I was like,
Yeah,
"Get your
yeah.
TP,
Oh,
like,
wow.
get your masks, like, something's coming
Oh,
up, man.
good
I
call.
don't like the chatter over there."
Well, it really worried us. I mean, you think about those of us in the calling games world and the sports world, you just didn't know what the future was going to be. You knew we'd be back. You just didn't know at what cost. So,
Right.
it's kind of wild to say it, but, that COVID year for Oklahoma, it really hurt the baseball program because that was a really good baseball team. But for
Mhm.
softball, I honestly, think that it kind of gave them a chance to look at the roster and say, all right, let's fill some holes here, here, and here. And you got a chance to get another year of Jocelyn and Grace and, in the end, Kinsey Hansen and Riley Boone, and they made the most of it. So kind of just wild to look back as to how that shaped the sports world going forward too.
Yeah. No, that's a good segue. You just talked about, being able to look at, filling some gaps back then. And that's kind of what they've had to do this off season. It's well publicized. Everyone that graduated and left,
Mhm.
you mentioned Hanson, Boone, just all of them, Jennings, Brito, all of them. So what is the vibe of this new young team coming here into the spring?
It's all new. It's really, I thought, first of all, you can get a sense of just how different things truly are for this team with this fact. The captain is someone who's never played for Oklahoma.
Mhm.
I mean, the captain for this year's team has never taken a regular season at bat and has never played. And, that's wild when you consider the class that just graduated, where you had, arguably any of those seniors could have been the captain. And it ended up being TRA and Kinsey, but you pretty much had Brito at third and
Mhm.
TRA moving to short. And heck, even with what they were doing with the platoon at second, Alina Torres had leadership like qualities. Kinsey obviously behind the plate, Boone and Coleman in the outfield. What I mean, it's like seven. So you had 7
Yeah.
captains on that
Yeah.
team,
Yeah.
right? And then throw in Nicole May and Kelly Maxwell, who pitched for a while. So I got to be honest with you, man. It's as massive of a roster turnover as you could ever imagine. And I don't know if I've ever seen someone as excited about what it's going to look like than Patty Gasso. Because I don't even think, to be honest, she's prepared them. She's allowed them to learn. We've talked a lot in these last few weeks, and I think she's just as curious as anyone else to see what this is going to look like.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see there being not nervous excitement, just new excitement with all
Yeah.
these new people in here.
Hey, and let me tell you something. It's going to be wild because, everyone's used to Jada and TRA and Kinsey, and they were great. These young women that are coming in now physically are at the level that those student athletes were in their like second and third season. You think about training, the weight room development, and Tia Malloy, whenever you see her, you're like, what are you, like junior? And she's a freshman. Audrey Lowry, who's a freshman pitcher, has this presence about her. Nellie McEnroe-Morenas, even though she was here last year, redshirt freshman, just looks different. The only person that you look at and you think, okay, she's a freshman, might be Gabby Garcia, and she could start at shortstop, and she might be one of the best gloves we've had, this side of Grace Lyons. So it's different, but it's really exciting, Brad. I mean, I'm really pumped to see what this looks like next week.
Yeah, you said there's a new captain that wasn't on the team last year.
Yeah.
Can you name this said captain, or is that supposed to be under?
No, Nellie McEnroe-Morenas says,
Okay, okay.
it's Nellie, yeah. And so she's going to slide in. She's going to play third, and she had a great fall, and she's from Hawaii. Great kid. I've told this story a lot. I didn't really get an opportunity to get to know the freshmen that much last year because you had all the people that you had been around, for 4 years, and you wanted to kind of immerse yourself in those moments. And I didn't really get a chance to get to know Ella Parker, and obviously Nellie wasn't playing. You get to know their families a little bit, but you can really sense this maturity in them, right? Especially like Ella Parker just looks like a different person now. She's no longer a freshman; she's a leader. And in Nelly, for someone who didn't talk much, couldn't crack her last year because you try to make a joke, but she was real focused on a rehab. It's a really, really good personality, I think, to have. And it's kind of cool. She was telling the story whenever she was in school, whenever she was in high school, she was at the stadium the night that Jocelyn Alo broke the record. So it means a lot to her to kind of carry on that Hawaii tradition. And
Right.
I know that she's really had a good fall and then early, I guess you would say winter, leading into the start of the season.
Yeah. Ella's the one, everybody that's on everybody's radar.
Sure.
I feel like
Mhm.
if
Yeah.
I don't know if she was a superstar last year, but she's definitely the appointed superstar. If you see anybody on the team that looks like somebody's that's just going to turn into an
Right.
Alo or whatever.
I think I would put Cassidy Pickering in that
That's-
mix too.
Okay.
I think she's got a chance. But yeah, it's wild when you think of the star power that they graduated and how we're all sitting here trying to figure out, okay, who can be that next person? And we just named 3 people for most in Nelly and obviously Ella and Cassidy Pickering. Where most teams when they graduated class like OU did, you're like, what are we going to do? And they've kind of reloaded here going into the toughest conference in college softball.
Yeah. Hey, so who would be your like under the radar player that could surprise a lot of people and become be like that superstar or maybe be on that path or that trajectory that we're not really talking about or we're not seeing, preseason. Get into midseason and you got some big games in the SEC with Florida and Tennessee and Alabama and all of them. Who's kind of on your radar to watch?
I would say, okay, I'm going to start and you're going to have to stop me, okay, Rob, because I love this kind of question and I'm going to end up naming like 15 people.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. I'm just apologizing beforehand.
Well, it's a testament to the number 1 recruiting class.
Yes.
It's a testament to the
Transfer
transfer
portal.
portal.
Yeah.
It's a testament to coaching. There's going to be, Patty. You mentioned Patty and how the excitement, everything. This is like a year where she's going to coach. Like she's going to be like coaching hardcore. She's got a blank canvas, so she's going to be able to. There's going to be more than one player, but I'm putting you on the spot for one player. But you're going to name me like 5. So yeah.
I'll give you a couple. Well, we mentioned Nelly, so just kind of keep Nelly McEnroe-Marinas in the back of your mind. There's a girl out of California named Sydney Barker. I think by the end of the non-conference season, I think she's going to be a regular in this lineup at either short or second. She, you heard so much a couple of years ago. Everything is a couple of years ago to me, Rob Brad, just so you know. And it's like 95. But a couple of years ago, whenever Jada Coleman and Tiare Jennings started, I remember Jada Coleman was the talk of the town, and understandably so. And someone, Jessica Cootie, who's now in Nebraska, was at fall ball, and she's like, I don't know, Jada's amazing, but this Tiare Jennings girl, look out. And there wasn't a lot of hype or talk about Tiare Jennings. And you went and you watched, and you're like, oh my gosh. And that's what Sydney Barker has kind of been to me. Didn't really hear much about her. Didn't really know much about her. She's taller than what you would typically look, taller than Tiare even was for a middle infielder. But she's smooth and she can rake. And I want to say she wears like 77. So it's kind of got the grapefruit league feel to it. It's like, who's this spring training star here? Sydney Barker is a name to keep an eye on. I really like where she has come from fall ball to now. As far as transfers, how about Maya Bland? I'm sorry. Maya Bland is returning people we're not talking about. I mean, she's just they've been gushing about her. She returns from last year's team. But Abby Dayton, Abigail Dayton is the Utah transfer. She played for DJ at Utah, and then she just had an outstanding season. She is awesome. Good person, good kid, good personality, and then she can just flat out fly. I don't know if she's going to lead off. I think Agbayani might lead off, but Dayton, if she's not a leadoff hitter, kind of has that really good 9-hole feel to her, to where you can turn
Mhm.
over your lineup with her
Mhm.
down there.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I like her a lot. Listen, Tia Malloy is going to play a part on this team somewhere in some way, shape, or form. And it's just, I get going. Like I said, I'm going to mention like 50 people on this rundown. There is a girl named Corey Hicks. I say girl, a young woman named Corey Hicks, and she is gonna be backing up Isabella Immerling at catcher, but she can rake, and she's a freshman, a true freshman. She was hurt during the fall, so we didn't see her a ton, and then she got healthy for like the last couple of games, and you're like, oh my gosh, who is that? So they've got a lot of people, and what's funny,
Yeah.
Rob, if you think about it, I just mentioned some people. I could pull up this roster and say every single one of these are an unknown in a Sooner uniform except Sid Sanders, Ella Parker, and Cassidy Pickering, because all of them either didn't play a major role last year or are
Mhm.
new. Now, we haven't touched on the pitching staff. We can do that later if you want, but that's just when I'm thinking about bats and I'm thinking about position players. It's a whole lot of new, and those are some of the players that have really intrigued me with what they might look like coming up here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I had a roster, but it doesn't present very well, so I wasn't even going to pull it up. But
Yeah,
yeah,
are you talking about the roster on Soonersports.com?
yeah,
Fix Soonersports.com. I don't know who we have to talk to. Whatever
yeah.
happened to it, fix it, people. I don't know what's going on there.
Just a nice presentation,
Yes,
where
that's
a nice
easy.
full screen presentation would be nice. But yeah, Bella Dayton, she's got some big shoes to fill in center field, taking over for Jada, because we're just used to Jada being a highlight reel out there.
Yeah,
Um,
she's got a chance. Abigail Dayton, she's got a chance. She really does. And I think she is one of those players that has that kind of juice where it's going to be different, guys. I mean, for your listeners and viewers, we got to make one thing very clear. It's probably not going to be a team that's going to go out and hit, 4 home runs a game. This is going to be a little bit more of a speed, hit and run,
Okay.
manufacturing runs. They're going to be fun. They're
Mhm.
fast. They're a fast team. And I think
Really?
Dayton's one of those. Yeah, she's one of those multi-tool players that can do a little bit of it all.
Yeah, kind of a Riley Boone
Yeah, exactly.
type. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you touched on pitching, and you said the quote a couple minutes ago, just 2 years ago. 2 years ago,
Couple
we
years
rode
ago.
we rode Jordy Ball all the way to the
Mhm.
championship. So it was kind of just jumping on Jordy Ball, and of course we had other pitchers as well, Nicole May and a couple others I'm not thinking of right top. Last year it was kind of a committee a
Sure.
little bit more. Do you expect it to be more like that this year, more of a committee, and not have that
Yeah.
one ace you can go to?
Yeah, I do. I think you hit it on the head, Brad. I think it's funny when you go back. I'm gonna try to do maybe backwards would be better. Last year was Kelly Maxwell getting hot at the right time
Right.
and just being unhittable.
Mhm.
The run she made from the Big 12 tournament through the World Series, like what's the great Schnellenberger line? Books will be written. They got to write books about that, because she didn't pitch all that well against Oklahoma State in Norman.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, you
Yeah.
fast forward to the Big 12 tournament, and then the NCAA tournament, and then the World Series, and she's absolutely unhittable and provided one of the greatest moments maybe in, this Sooner softball run, whenever she's coming out of the pen to shut down Texas. And it's just, I get chill bumps thinking about it.
Yeah, you
So
just gave me some.
yeah, it's awesome, right? When you think
Yeah.
about it coming in the
Yeah.
game. So you had her, and then the year before that was the Jordy year, right? Whenever Jordy she was just unbelievable in the World Series. And then prior to that, Jordy got hurt before the
Mhm.
World Series,
Mhm.
and Hope Troutwine, they rode her. The year before that was G. Juarez. So, you've had this run of pitchers that in your mind, you're like, boy, they really rode them. But all of them, as you said, had a 2 or a 3 that helped them out. They just got hot at the right time. Like, for instance, those that maybe didn't follow Sooner softball from beginning to end that watch this might think, oh, Kelly Maxwell was amazing all year long. She was really good, but she wasn't that same cat that was in the World Series. It was a process to get there. And could Oklahoma, by the time they go to the World Series, have someone do what Maxwell did? Absolutely. If it's Kirsten Deal,
Mhm.
if it's, Peyton Monticelli, if it's Sam Landry, if it's Bella Smith, they've got 4 veteran pitchers on the staff that each do something completely different, and that's wild. One of the interesting things about the pitching staff, I think, is that you don't, Audrey Lowry. I think spring ball. And make sure I get my balls separate. Fall ball was a good eye opener for her. I think it was learning a lot about pitching against college hitters and understanding what it took. And I think she took that, and I think she got better. And I think she's got a chance to be one of their best pitchers this year. The most intriguing part of this for me for Oklahoma, and the pitcher maybe by committee not having an ace, is we got a very late add to the roster, and that was Sophia Bordy, and she should be a high school senior, but she decided to enroll early. And the plan right now is to redshirt her. Mm-hmm. She was already done with high school, and she was gonna go work with I want to think it was Bad Busters or someone like that. But from everything we've heard, she's been really impressive. And for a team that doesn't really have a true ace right now, I think that's a name to keep an eye on as the season progresses. The challenging part for Oklahoma is softball and baseball, and I think even basketball are unlike anything else that we know as red shirts, because in football, guys can play 4 games, they can come on the field. Softball, baseball, basketball, the moment you step on the court or on the dirt, you're done. So if they come to a decision on Sophia Bordy, it'll be very fascinating to see how they handle that, because whole intent is to redshirt her, but she is an outstanding talent.
Okay. She's probably she's 17, probably still.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. My son's so everything goes backwards. So yeah, she's probably 17 or 18 years old. Yeah, I mean,
no,
it's tough, right? Because we see this happen in football and we don't really bat an eye. But football, you get the entire spring and then you get a camp and boom, you're there. In softball, it's like you decide you're enrolling early, welcome to the season, right? You don't get that fall ball or anything. So I'm not coming on here to say that she's going to play a factor or that I think she's going to play. I'm just, from what has been told to us, to me, and I'm sharing with you guys, is she's making a name for herself in the way that she's handled things early on. That's pretty impressive for Sophia Bordy.
That's awesome. No, I'm glad she reclassified. Anyone you can get on campus early, especially a talent like her. I'm all
get in your strength system, right? Get with your people and get with your coach. I think it's massive.
Yeah, totally agree. So Rob touched on it a few minutes ago. This is the first year we're going into the SEC, and I looked it up the other day, and preseason rankings, 10 of the top 15 are SEC teams.
Yeah.
So just loaded. We already knew it was loaded. That's not anything new. Before we had OSU and Texas to compete with. Now it's just the deepest conference by far in the country. Fortunately, I think we have Bama, Tennessee, Florida, and Texas. And the others maybe aren't quite, up there in the same rankings, but it's just going to be, I don't know, just every week's just going to be fun. I know you're looking forward to taking road trips,
sure,
Florida or whatever. And
I liked the Big 12 in softball because I had developed my niche. I knew where I was going in Ames. I knew where I was going when I went to Lawrence. I could go and I could drive everywhere. There wasn't a single trip where I'm like, I got to get on a flight. This is now a different world, but I think what's great about softball is you do bring back some teams that they had played. OU and Missouri have a very rich history against each other, and that's a good program. OU and Arkansas, I mean, it's the Gassos going up against each other. That's awesome. OU and Alabama haven't played a ton, but when they do, it's always incredibly meaningful. Think about, College World Series appearances, super regionals. So there's not this massive history between the two teams, but they've played big time games, and you just hit it on the head. How many did you say in the top 10 were SEC teams?
10 of the top 15.
Yeah, to the top 15, they're good.
I
think Alabama's underrated. I think they're going to be better than people are giving them credit for, and we've got to go there. We're going to go to Florida. I think that's the final weekend of the season, right before the SEC tournament. So, there's a lot of meat to this SEC bone. But what's great about it is it's big time matchups. You don't have to kill yourself in the non-conference. And for Patty Gasso and our administrators and the director of ops, Jackie Livingston and those who would fight and scratch claw to get, teams to want to come here. We don't have to do that anymore. You've got a built-in schedule where you're not killing yourself during the non-conference and spending a lot of money traveling everywhere because you're going to get big-time RPI matchups. And RPI matters. You want to be in that top 8. You don't have to be 1. You want to be in a position to host a super regional. And in the Big 12, you're always fighting, even though Texas is good and Oklahoma State's really good under Kenny Gajewski, you're always fighting that, they're in the Big 12. They have a soft schedule. Are they really worthy of being 1, 2, 3, or 4? Now it's like, they did that in the SEC and they won, X series out of whatever. So you're gonna earn it, and it's gonna be, it's not gonna be you've got to check. This takes a concern and maybe kind of a red X when people would try to evaluate Oklahoma's resume. That takes it completely off the board with this conference.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. Season starts this Thursday, correct? Aren't you?
Yeah. So, I mean,
California?
I don't know when this is coming out, but we're taping on a Sunday, right? And, we leave our flight. We're blowing out of here in Norman at like 7 a.m. on Wednesday, and we're making our way to San Diego. And something cool, I don't know if you guys have seen this. We're not going to Palm Springs this year, which was an annual trip. Now, I hate we're not going there for the scenery and just being bitter over all the people playing golf, right? But what Patty's doing is really cool. Last week we saw a program that made the postseason in Cleveland State shut down its program, softball program. We've seen several other schools that have kind of made it publicly known that, hey, we might not be able to continue our softball program with the new rev share. And obviously, if you're not in one of the softball's not a revenue-producing sport, and when you see programs like Ohio State that are working on a deficit like they did, there's a reason why. So with that in mind, we're going to San Diego State, we're going to Fullerton, we're going to Loyola Marymount, LA, and we're going to Long Beach State, and Coach is doing so in order to help those programs raise some money. Loyola Marymount wasn't going to charge ticket prices, and Coach said, I'm not coming. Some people might get mad about that, and I probably would be a little bit upset, but her reasoning was programs are dying. And if you want to make money and you want to stay relevant, charge $30, $40 a ticket. We're going to sell this place out for you, and you're going to make some money. Does it help the overall bottom line? A lot, maybe not. But for a school like Marymount and Fullerton, places that don't really have big-time commitments to their diamond sports programs, Fullerton and baseball, not so much in softball, it's a big deal. So that's one of the coolest things about this non-conference season is just a coach that cares so much about the sport that we're kind of taking the circus on the show, and the Big Top's going to be out there to try to make some money for everybody, and I think it's cool.
That's you don't hear of that in other sports.
No.
That's fantastic.
It's very, very unique, and that is cool. Thanks for sharing that. Because
Mark, I should say, Mark Williams does the same thing for men's gymnastics, right? If you look, there's only 19 schools that even have Division I men's gymnastics, and so they're out. They're donating gear. They're talking to administrators because people can get mad about budgets and things of that nature. But you can never really get in a position where you think you're too big for the sport or you're not doing your part to help out the school overall. And I think Coach Gasso she takes that very seriously, definitely for the sport and especially for those places on the West Coast, which helped really groom her as a coach and a player.
Hey, before I want to shift gears here in a minute, if you can stay with us a little longer, I'd like to talk a little football with you. But before I do that, I wanted to get your prediction on the softball team. Are you allowed to make a prediction?
Oh, sure. I think they're going to roll through the non-conference season. The Baylor trip is always a bit challenging, but that's not a very good Baylor team right now. And Glenn Moore at least has a few tricks up his sleeve. But there's, last year Oklahoma lost 6 games. And you would have thought that the sky was falling in some people's eyes. And maybe at one point it was. You lost the home game to BYU. You lost a series to Texas. You lost a series to Oklahoma State. But once that team decided to flip a switch, it flipped the switch and let everyone know, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. So I don't know if this team has that just because of everything that has been lost, but I think it's a team that there's going to be some games early where if you're going to get them early. Because I think by the time we're going to Bama, it's that Texas stretch. It's like Texas, Bama, Florida to wrap up the season in the SEC tournament.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be really good. But I do think early on there might be some hiccups. And Patty was preaching patience to everybody at the coaches' luncheon the other day. But I think this, the unfair standard has been set. Okay, this team has to go to the College World Series. It's not a lost season if they don't. But the last time they didn't go was 2015. And I think this team is really driven not to have a year they play that isn't on that outfield wall. And I know they want it painted gold too. So 5 in a row is going to be tough. Texas is really good. Florida's really good. Oklahoma State's really good. But I'm not ever going to put it past them. I'm just preaching, at least for your listeners and your fans, patience early on in the season, because by the time we get to the heart of the SEC season, I think this team is going to be cooking.
Yeah. You're gonna have to come up with some new things to say whenever we do hit home runs. You used to be able to TRA and
we got new things.
Bomb. Now you got to come up with all this new terminology.
Hey, for a lot of them, I'm still just making sure I say their name right. It's just we get to that point first and let them hit enough home runs, and we'll definitely have fun with it. I've got the greatest creative partner in the planet. Anytime I'm thinking about something, I'll just toss it right in front of Toby Rowland. He'd be like, I don't know about that. How about this? So he doesn't need my help. I need his help. He's one of the most creative guys I've been around. So we'll see what we can come up with.
Agreed. Love Toby. Hey, I want to shift gears a little bit and move over to football. Rob and I, we've had interesting conversations on some of our pods, especially the last, 6 weeks or longer since the season was over. Just a kind of crazy off season. We ended the season and then lost the bowl game. We lost Zach Alley. We had 30 guys hit the portal. Mateer joined. Arbuckle joined. Knowles was interviewed. Just all kinds of stuff. We haven't seen anything like it in a long time. So, what's kind of your thoughts on everything that's transpired over the last, 6 weeks?
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy. I don't know if I've been a part of a postseason like it, an off season like it, but I also am kind of looking around the country, and if you're not playing for national title or you're not in the playoffs, this is kind of college football now, right? This is kind of college sports. Yeah. Going back, you don't know any of the guys on your roster. I thought it was kind of wild because I don't know if after Arbuckle was hired and then Mateer was signed, I don't know if I've ever seen this fan base in a better place after a difficult, challenging, frustrating season than it was after that. And then the Navy loss, Zach Alley leaving, how some people perceive some massive miss on Jim Knowles, which is fine. I don't know if I've ever seen him more down. And I can't ever change how anyone's going to feel, and everyone has a right to feel a certain way, especially those who have been around it for a long time. The standard is, 10 or more wins, conference championships, playing for titles, and Oklahoma's fallen short of that. And I don't know how many people could have overcome the adversity that Oklahoma had last year. And I think at times I'm kind of in shock at everything that happened. Like I said, every year running together. In 2023, in Brent's second year, when OU won 10 games, I'll never forget Jay Valai coming in for the coach's corner interview, and Jay saying, I don't know if I've ever seen anything like the injuries we're dealing with. Remember whenever against Texas, you had Key Lawrence playing corner, and Gentry
right.
has been
Kendall
unable.
Was at corner too, shuffling people. It was
crazy, right, Rob? I mean, crazy. And so then last year you had, and by the way, Joe John was the same way 2 years ago as well, with all the injuries that sabotaged the tight end room. Then last year, Bill Bedenbaugh, very first time he came in, I don't know if I've ever had anything like this in the offensive line. Emmett Jones, I don't know if I've ever had anything like this in the receiver room. So it's absolutely wild to me to see everything Oklahoma had to deal with injury-wise in targeted areas. And each of the last 2 years, add into it, add into it that, Jackson Arnold, looking back, if we would have known that Dillon Gabriel was going to stick around another year, maybe you try to sell Jackson Arnold on the Arch Manning plan. Who knows? And I don't know if it would have been much better behind that offensive line with Dillon Gabriel or not. But, it was as frustrating of a season because you felt like they were better, but they just weren't getting the results. And you felt like that it took a massive step back in an area that we haven't had a concern about in a really long time around here, and that's the offense. So it's kind of wild whenever, I remember in 02 and 03, and I guess you might even throw 01 in there, but more 01 and 02, whenever your big concern was, geez, can this defense hold up? Because this offense is just not getting us points like it needs to. And we had a very similar situation this year. Only the offense did a really good job of putting the defense in tough situations and putting them in early holes. So that's a lot about last year to strictly say. I'm really excited about this season. I'm a very optimistic dude to begin with. I was at the women's gymnastics meet on Saturday night, and Mateer, took the microphone and just sounded like the dude that you want him to sound like. I talked to him. I got a chance. I was one of the first guys that had a chance to interview Mateer, and I was really impressed with him. So, we're getting close to spring football. This is going to be a fascinating spring, maybe one of the most interesting springs we've ever had. Some of these receivers have got to step up. Deion Burks, Gibson have to stay healthy. And if that happens, I think you've got a chance to be really good offensively based on everything that I've seen from Ben Arbuckle's history and John Mateer's history. If that offense is good, I think Oklahoma's got a chance to be infinitely improved. And remember, not to continue to add to my positivity and a glass half full approach, but everything in OU athletics was geared, and specifically football, was geared towards this being the first year in the SEC. Everything got fast forwarded a little bit, and the whole world changed. But this was supposed to be 2025 was its first season. Now that falls on deaf ears when Texas is going to back-to-back Final Fours, and I agree. I completely understand. But I'm really, it's a make-or-break year for this direction and this staff, and I really am positive that they've got this thing set up to where they can make some noise. And then you look ahead, if Oklahoma can be better in 25, think about 26, you get what's considered to be a little bit easier schedule. You'll get that Texas schedule more in 2026. So I'm excited about it. But I completely understand the concerns and the worries, and I'm with you in a lot of ways. I got to see it to believe it.
Yeah, I agree with you, particularly like offensive side. Like if there's any side of the ball that you can revamp, in 1 year, it always seems to be that offensive side. Rebuilding a defense is way more challenging.
Yep.
But I think bringing in quarterback, offense coordinator combo, you've already taken care of half of your issue right there, right from the start. So
and I would say I think that Oklahoma's always going to supplement on the offensive line in the portal. But I think what you've seen is the teams that are playing for titles have developed their offensive line. You look at Ohio State's offensive line. Now, granted, they lost their portal center to an injury, but for the most part, I think all 5 of the starters in the championship game were non-portal guys. I made 4 of the 5 for Notre Dame. Texas, all 5 were high school guys. Miami this year, all 5 was high school guys. Oregon the same way. Yep. So my point is, I know some people are like, get up the best left tackle out of the portal. Well, Oklahoma got a really good tackle out of the portal, and the kid they brought in from Stanford. But I think the key to success is hit that portal for if you need a quarterback, if you need a running back, and your skill players, develop your offensive lineman and be able to sprinkle in, a good O-lineman here and there. And I think Oklahoma too often over the last few years has had to completely build its offensive line out of the portal. Now, Walter Rouse ended up being a great fit, right? Guyton was really good, but we had a couple of years to develop Guyton. If he was a one-year guy, he wouldn't have been that great. So I like the direction we're headed in the offensive line too, because if you can give Mateer a little bit of time, I think it's going to go a long way for Oklahoma to have offensive success next year.
Yeah, yeah. Agree with the offensive line, particularly last year's class coupled with this year's class. They've,
Mhm.
beaten both stacked two good classes on top of each other. So
Agreed.
if they can get some production from this year's class, yeah, they're just set up for the next 3 or 4 years. Um, so yeah, hopefully they
Hopefully,
can get that production. Yeah.
we
Brad's mentioned on the pod before about Beanbo is kind of paying for some of the success that he's had. He sends guys to the NFL on a regular
yeah,
basis, and you're sitting there trying to reload, and like yeah, we've had some transfers in and everything, but you're absolutely right. Like you've got to develop your guys in house. You got to get those high school dudes, and it does take offensive line is like the hardest position to project. And you're looking, it takes time to develop those
right.
guys, and Beatembo being the best developer there is. He's got himself a really, really good room to build a really good offensive line next year. And
Not
the
agree more.
Mateer is an it factor, man. He's ready. I mean, I haven't seen a guy come in to a program like this at as OU program at this level and be so comfortable with all the expectations, and he knows what's ahead of him, and it seems like his teammates already love him, and he. I think I'm with you, man. I'm excited what this offense can do, and the defense is going to be great. We just need
Sure.
offense to do something. And if you've got Beatembo with his room, and you've got the quarterback and OC combo, I mean, it's gonna be a great year.
I agree, and I think I'm glad you hit that on Beanbo on the development side. And historically, a couple of games, 2 or 3 games, to kind of figure out the best fit.
Yeah,
And it took obviously much longer. And just think about how cursed the line was last year. Even when Jacob Sexton started really playing well, what happened? He got hurt. He's
he got hurt.
playing
Yep.
he's playing so well against Ole Miss, and he got hurt. But yeah, I'm really listen. I'm over the moon excited about softball, as you might imagine. But this is as like nervous energy that I've had for football in a long time, because I'm one of those people. Like, listen, I'm a Raiders fan. We suck, but I'm ready to see what Pete Carroll can do. Right, let's go.
Sure.
And I
I
have a
like it.
nervous
Yeah.
energy about that. My nervous energy is through the roof because I mean, objectivity aside, man, I want Brent to win. I want Brent to win at Oklahoma, and I think he's doing all the
Oh
things
yeah.
you need to do to win at Oklahoma. It's just they've been almost snake bitten, almost cursed, and maybe John Mateer is the guy to help break through that curse, because I think they've got a really, if you allow yourself to kind of chill on the Jim Knowles stuff and not get angry about that, or Zach Alley, if you kind of
Yeah.
pull back and take a deep breath, you're like, okay, I feel pretty good about this heading into the season. And
Yeah.
I think it's a
Brad.
fun year.
Yeah, Brad and I didn't get caught up in that Jim Knowles saga at all. Like we were sitting here, like if it happens, great,
Happens,
sure. But
happens.
we still got a great defensive coach on staff, one of the best defensive coaches in the country, in Brent Venables. So why are we getting all in
He's
a
going to call
tizzy
me.
about? Yeah, right. So, yeah, our defense is gonna be fine. It might
Yeah,
actually be better this coming year. It could be actually better statistically and everything next year. It's just we gotta get the offense rolling, and then we gotta have to run into some good luck. You mentioned a couple, the last couple
great.
years we've had injuries that have just been smacking us in the face that we don't know how. You can't control those things, so you gotta get lucky in the injuries. You gotta have the ball bounce your way a couple times, but um, a 10-win season is not out of the realm of possibility. So,
It's going to be a tough schedule. I mean, it's going to be
oh
tough.
sure,
Michigan's coming here
oh
too, but
oh sure,
I'm with you. I'm very excited. And let's start with spring. All right, I want to see what Ben Arbuckle's offense looks like with John Mateer. I want to see these guys look comfortable. So it should be one of the more, I want to say, exciting, right? But we know
sure,
how frustrated fan bases can be. But if you, like I said, if you allow yourself to buy in a bit and accept that if you get heartbroken, it is better to
yeah,
love than to and lost and never to love at all, something like that.
yeah.
Well, let's go with that with expectations. Let's get excited about what this team could be, because I just think spring's going to be fun to figure out who we're buying into and who we're concerned about.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Totally
here in a
agree.
few weeks, here in a few weeks, we've got a active OC friend that's going to come on, and
That's
him and
awesome.
I have actually we've charted all 987 offensive plays of Mateer in Washington State last year. So we're gonna have a full breakdown of like from down and distance, personnel groupings, plays, and everything. We're gonna upload all that to a dashboard. We're gonna show that, and we've got a whole. We're working right now on picking plays, some of the strengths to the offense, the strengths to
Nice.
Mateer, and then we've got some opportunities for improvement of Mateer and Arbuckle. But we're gonna have here probably like couple weeks. It takes some time to run through 1,000 plays. I
Let me
thought I was
tell you
gonna have it done by January. I was not done by January.
I feel you.
But yeah,
I
here
feel, but I'll be
we're
tuned in for that. I want to learn as much as I can about
oh
what King Arbuckle is
it,
all
it-
about because I think it's going to be exciting.
yeah. We'll have it, man.
Yeah.
We're gonna have it all.
All 1,000.
All 1,000, man.
Hey, Chris, I kind of want to let you get back to your yard work while you have
All
a
right.
little bit of daylight. But I just wanted to say, hey, we'd like for you to be a friend of the show.
Sure.
Would love for you to come on a couple more times, maybe during the season, maybe midway through the season, and then maybe when it gets closer to postseason.
Yeah,
We
man.
should be going. We should be going to postseason.
They'll be going to
Um,
postseason. I feel good about that.
Yeah. But yeah, really appreciate you coming on. Just big fan. For the other of you just tuning in, we got Chris Plank here today, and please, just tune in to all the OU softball games, and then you can catch him weekdays from 9 to noon on KREF.
That's right.
So,
And if you're looking for a great place to listen to the games anywhere you are, we're confirmed to be on the Varsity Network app. And so if you search Varsity Network in your app store, you can find it there. And don't ask me about TV because I only care about radio. No, most of the games will be on TV. We're actually working to take equipment with us to make sure that we can get the first few games because right now they're not planning on being televised. But we're going to do what we can to make sure you have a feed. Hey, they're the 4-time national champs. They won 6 in the last 8 years. I think they deserve all the TV we can give them. So thanks for having me, guys. I could talk softball and football all day long, and feel free to reach out anytime. You got my number.
hey, thank you.
See you guys.
Take care, Chris.
See-
Man, that was fun.
Yeah.
Chris brings the energy. He knows his stuff.
Oh yeah.
Oh boy, yeah, that was just jump on. Uh-huh.
Go ahead. Yeah, go.
No, like he knows softball inside and out. I love it.
Oh, it gets
But-
me all excited, man. I'm ready to go.
Exactly.
Let's go get number 5. I
know.
He just like sit there tempering expectations, and I'm like, no. In my head, I'm like, we want to win.
I didn't say it at the
I'm
beginning of
just
the.
excited.
Yeah, I didn't say it at the beginning of the pod, but please like and subscribe. I think I had some nerves trying to bring Chris on there, so yeah, please like and subscribe to the show. Yeah, we'll try to get Chris on as much as we can just during the season, just to touch base and see how the season's going. And no, there's a lot of nervous energy in that building with Patty and this team, just with so many young faces, new faces, whatever.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun to watch and see how it plays out. But yeah.
Well, I think, I looking at Patty, right? Coach Gasso, this has got to be like so much fun for her because she has got all this youthful talent that she gets to coach up. Again, it's like a blank canvas, and like, yeah, you're gonna have to make, you're not gonna be your power hitting team. Chris Plank just mentioned that we're gonna be kind of that hit and run and use your speed team, but like, this has got to be exciting for her to build up legends again. And that's just what GOAT coaches do. They just take these young, youthful talent and then make legends out of them. And like, last year, I think there was an interview with her that she was like, I didn't really have to coach. Like she already did the work. She already had, Chris mentioned like 7 captains on a team, and they just flipped the switch and won a championship. This is a year where she's gonna have fun. Like, this is where like coaches coach, and this is what, and and as a legend, she's just gonna make more legends. So
Yeah.
that's why it's so exciting because we're sitting here in the off season with a few days left, and we're gonna be able. This is like starting. It's like a new birth where we're gonna have new characters and we're gonna have new players that are gonna start their legend path in just a few days.
Yeah.
He's got me excited, man. I'm ready.
No,
I
it's
gotta make
gonna
sure
it's
I got
gonna
my ESPN Plus and everything set. Good lord. I gotta go log in and start making sure I
yeah,
got it all set
and
up.
yeah, and unfortunately to start the season, especially that first month or so, they carry a lot of the games TV wise on Flow Softball, I think is what it's called.
Oh,
So you
okay.
can't get it on ESPN Plus, which is very frustrating. But you'll see that happen a lot, especially here in February before the conference season starts up.
Okay. Got it.
But yeah, no, yeah, it'll be fun. Just like you said, there'll be new names established, and Patty's having to coach. It was funny during SEC when SEC media came here. What was that in? Was that during the summer?
I
They
don't
came
know.
to Texas. They came here. I want to say it was toward the end of summer. But I think Coach Saban was on campus, and he went over to the softball facility, and him and Patty were, the two goats were out there
Oh, yeah,
talking
yeah.
it up. So, she's the best example of, you know, softball's version of Nick Saban. That's what Patty
Yeah, pretty
Gasso
much.
is, man. Yeah. So,
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
but what else? I know you and I talked about doing possibly a Super Bowl preview. So we may do that next week.
Sooner
You
Bowl.
don't, yeah, yeah. The
Sooner
Sooner
Bowl.
Bowl. I don't know who's playing in that. Philadelphia is playing somebody. I don't know who they're playing.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of just poor schmucks that don't know how to play football, just stumbling in.
Trying to make history,
Yep.
and I would assume. Would you agree? Probably Travis Kelsey's last game.
No. I no.
You think you
I
think he's returning for another year?
yeah. I think you're gonna have to there's gonna have to be some serious talks with him eventually about not playing. I think he's just one of those guys that just wants to keep playing. How long did Witten play? Witten was like 40, wasn't he?
Was he?
Jason Witten was like 40 or
Yeah,
41.
I don't know. This seems like your shelf life as a tight end can't be as long as anything like a
He,
quarterback, just because you're
he-
getting beat up.
you if he was on a bad team where they were utilizing him so much and he was getting beat up, but he's on the luxury of a really, really great team that can put him on a pitch count and coast through the season and just
Mhm.
get to the playoffs and then turn up. So like that's where you're kind of seeing out of the Chiefs right now. They're players that were banged up. And their offense has been pretty vanilla through the whole year. You see it, they get to the playoffs, they just flip a switch. If it was something where, Kelsey had to grind out an actual season as the number one receiver and take all the shots, then I would probably be like, eh. But being a Chief right now with Mahomes and Reed is you've got the regular season where it's just sort of like playoffs are automatic. You might as well just wait. I think he definitely has slowed down, but I think he's got a couple more years.
Huh. Yeah.
I just think taking football away from him is going to be really, really difficult. You hear him on his New Heights podcast. That love of the game has not left. Like he is, I think he will break his back to play one more season for sure.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I never listened to their pod. I just assume with things off the field and other things that he may be thinking about hanging it up. Shortly behind when his brother did. But you might be
Yeah.
right. Maybe a couple more years. We can save some of this for the preview next
Sure,
week. I
sure.
just want to. Yeah.
Yeah.
What else you got?
Well, I mean, we never really talked about the Jim Knowles saga. We didn't
Yeah.
talk really about Captain Douchebag. We didn't really talk about. We haven't really had an opportunity. we could leave that all the wayside. It's all old news, or we can move on. I don't really care.
Yeah. There were several people that swung and missed on this Jim Knowles thing. There was a couple of people, one guy out there, I'm not for naming people, but predicted that he was basically going to sign like in a couple of days, and obviously that didn't happen. So there was a intro type podcast that was thrown out on accident by someone else. Just a lot of
yeah. No,
just
I
a
mean,
lot of there's a lot of carelessness that happens in the social media podcasting world, and we've probably slipped up a few times this past year
sure.
ourselves. You
Oh
know what
yeah,
I
of
mean?
course.
But
Yeah.
don't don't get ahead of yourself on these things. There's no reason to. Everybody thinks they need to be the first.
They do, right?
I have to be the first. No, you don't. You
Yeah.
can be the fifth as long as you build a reputation of having
Yes. Yeah.
reliable information. It doesn't matter
Well,
if you're first.
some people it matters because I mean it's about the
Yeah.
clicks and views and all
No.
that stuff. But
Yeah.
I mean it's the it was the confirmed Jim Knowles is the DC at Oklahoma, and it was like the day before the national championship.
Right.
Okay. Like before the national championship,
Yeah.
he has set in stone, maybe not have signed, but the deal
Right.
and the understanding, all those words, it's done.
Right.
Like he's about to go into Jim Knowles is about to go into the biggest game of his career. He's 59 years old. He's been coaching for over 25, 28 years. And before he goes in that game, he's got a understanding that he's going to become the OU defensive coordinator. Okay, sure. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Just
the
a lot of
biggest baloney, man. This is like
yeah.
the anyway.
Yeah.
Where do we
So
want to talk about? Where are we going
no,
with this, Brad?
no, I know. No, Knowles is out, and we brought in a couple of assistant linebacker coaches, whatever. Nate Dreiling from where's he coming from again?
I have
Darn
no
it.
idea.
So Nate Dreiling and Wes Goodwin. Wes Goodwin's coming over from Clemson.
Arkansas
Nate Dreiling.
State, but
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, but he was the DC hired there, but he's coming from Utah State.
Right. So I hired a couple of coaches. Brent comes out yesterday or the day before and says, I'm going to call the defense this year. So to me, that means we're done looking for coaches at this point. He's going to call the
Sure.
plays, and that was maybe going to happen, with whoever else he got besides Knowles anyway. But he just kind of confirmed that a couple of days ago. So, yeah, so that's kind of where we're at with football until spring practices start, and then the spring game sometime around April 20th, something like that. It's usually the last third of the month, which will be our anniversary of the Champion Standard podcast sometime in April, which is crazy that we're approaching a year already.
That's nuts, man.
Flown by.
It is definitely flown by.
But
I had a laundry list of things I wanted to get finished before we even had our first episode, and quite a few of those things I still haven't gotten finished. And hopefully I can get it done for year one. But had so many ideas, still working on them.
oh man, you've been able to get us to where we can sit on here and talk. That's a pretty big step right there in itself, just to get all that worked out. So yeah, I don't, we'll just save our Super Bowl talk for next weekend. But we can let everybody go. Thanks for tuning in. That was one great conversation with Chris Plank today and the softball team. Hope you enjoyed it. And until our Super Bowl preview next week, have a great week, and Boomer Sooner.
See you guys.